all across America and around the world. This is Veterans Radio. This is Veterans Radio.
And good afternoon and welcome to Veterans Radio. My name is Dale Throneberry. This is our final program of 2025. Wow, where did that time go? But we've got a special one for you today. Next year, the Congressional Medal of Honor Society is holding its convention in Detroit, Michigan. I believe it's September 30th to October 3rd. And so we're going to be promoting that, of course, throughout next year. And I wanted to kind of introduce you to you today. So we've got an interview coming up with Jim Falzone and the organizers of the Medal of Honor Society's convention in Detroit. And then we've got the privilege, I think, of interviewing two Medal of Honor recipients that we talked to back in 2018. That was Lieutenant Colonel Charles Kettles and Spec 4, I believe he was, James McCloughan. And so we recorded that program back in 2018, and they're going to be joining us very shortly. So I'm going to get right into this right now. If I don't get a chance to talk to you at the end of the program, we wish you a very, very happy New Year and a great future in 2026. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens. So here's Jim Falzone with the members of the organizing committee for the Medal of Honor Society's convention in Detroit.
We want to welcome to Veterans Radio today two gentlemen who are deeply involved in Detroit's efforts, successful efforts, to bring the Medal of Honor Society convention to Detroit in October of 2026. One of the things you know if you listen to Veterans Radio is we kind of get the information before other people do, and we get to pass it on to you so that you're in the know. So we're really happy to talk about what's coming a year from now when the living Medal of Honor recipients gather in Detroit for their annual convention. First up, we have Russell Schaumburger, who is the chair of the committee. Russ, welcome to Veterans Radio.
Well, thank you, Jim. Very much appreciate it, and looking forward to sharing more about the conference to the audience.
We want to welcome to Veterans Radio Adrian Kozakov, who is a committee member that's working on this huge effort to bring the Congressional Medal of Honor Recipients Convention to Detroit in 2026. Adrian, welcome to Veterans Radio.
Thank you for having me, Jim. Very excited to share about the convention.
Well, Russ, let's start with you. How did you get yourself involved in this, big task of pulling off the national convention?
Well, I don't know how much time you have, but to make it simple, I am also on the board of the Detroit Public Safety Foundation, and I've been supporting first responders for some time. And I met some folks that are involved with the recipient community and said, we've never had this in the city of Detroit. It would be cool to have. So I started working with Detroit Public Safety Foundation and the society to win the award or to bring it to Detroit, which we were successful on doing. And now I find myself having the tiger by the tail, which is a labor of love. I'm very fortunate in my position to be able to give back to the community. Been doing so for about 7 years for Detroit Public Safety Foundation. And it's just all about Detroit, the veteran community, and giving back.
Well, why don't you expand a little bit more on the Detroit Public Safety organization? Because folks can go there and donate for this particular Congressional Medal of Honor convention, and really I don't think most folks would go, I don't know what the Detroit Public Safety Organization is.
Well, the Detroit Public Safety Foundation is a 501c3. It is the charity of record for this conference, and what we do is we take care of fallen first responders, their families, and things of that nature. We do things for youth groups within the city. And we provide things to the first responders. It's just simple little things, creature comforts for the fire department, their housing, things of that nature. But our main focus is giving back to the community and taking care of youth programs and first responders who are injured or fallen in the line of duty.
Well, clearly the Detroit Public Safety Foundation is a very worthy cause and is sort of the base here around which this Medal of Honor convention is building. And as you say, it's the financial arm of it as well. You can make 501c3 charitable deductions, contributions to the Detroit Public Safety Foundation for the purposes of supporting the Medal of Honor convention, if I understand it right.
Exactly. That's perfect. It's perfectly stated.
Well, Adrian, it's fairly clear that Russ just stumbled into this. The guy with a good idea always finds himself being told, "Oh, good, you're going to lead it." What,
Jim? I say no good deed goes unpunished.
Absolutely, absolutely. Adrian, how did you get involved?
In a similar fashion, I was voluntold to get involved in this and thought one of the employees and directors at the Medal of Honor Society said, "Hey, Adrian, you'd be a good fit for this," and talked with Russ, and Russ said, "Yes, we could use the help. Let's figure out a way to get involved." And from there, started getting more involved and seeing how I could help.
Well, your committee has a number of influential people on it. We have a mutual friend in Valdi Garcia with NDIA, with the Michigan Military and Veterans Hall of Honor, former state senator, and I know he's really excited about this as well. Are there other committee members you'd like to mention?
There's none at this time, and we have some feelers out. What we're doing is we have this year's conference coming on next week. So that's in Chattanooga. And what we wanted to do is go sit down, go through the whole thing. We'll be there all week. We're going to set A to Z and talk to everybody and say, let's learn from lessons learned. What went well, what didn't, how should we restructure? Now we have a straw person. We have roles identified. We have tasks and duties identified. We have some names penciled in. But before we pull the trigger in that, what we wanted to do is just go make sure that we've done all of our due diligence before we go asking people for, time, energy, and effort.
The Congressional Medal of Honor Society is a sort of standalone organization itself, and it's a way in which people can connect with living Medal of Honor recipients and learn more about those who have deceased. But do they have conventions every year?
Yes, they do have conventions every year, and they pick a city. You go and make a pitch, if you will. And so Valde and some others went down last year in San Antonio to do the pitch. And there's really three purposes for this. And I'm non-military. So I'm just a Detroit fellow that's trying to do a good job for the city of Detroit and veterans causes, right? I'm often flabbergasted by the fact that very few people know anything about the society. Know very little about recipients. When I booked the venue, and it's going to be at the Motor City Casino Hotel next year, some of the people there were saying, well, tell me more about what the society is, even visit Detroit. And so the main purpose of this is to go and communicate all about the medal, all about service, all about, what this stands for. The second thing is really to educate the national audience about Detroit. And then finally, what we come along with is to raise funds for the society itself and for veterans and youth programs within the city. So those, I would say, in general, are the three legs of the stool. Adrian, did I forget anything? I'm often get carried away and get excited in my exuberance. And so.
Yeah, I think that covers it very well. One item I would like to add more to was especially the youth programs. It's to help inspire our youth to live by, not only youth, but the people of Detroit, the people of Michigan, to live by the values that the medal instills in people.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. I think it's one of the things that you're going to be able to do is remind the nation of the contributions that have been made in Southeast Michigan and really Michigan as a whole to national defense. The arsenal of democracy, right? The World War II was largely successful because of our industrial production and what companies like Ford were able to do in turning out necessary defense equipment, planes, tanks, Jeeps, the famous Jeep, right? So it kind of goes both ways. We're going to learn what their lives were, what their sacrifices were, but hopefully we're also being able to pass on that message about what Detroit and the area has done for the nation.
Yep. It's all about education and expanding, the reach, the knowledge base of who knows about this stuff, right? I mean, there's really just a small group that's, I would hate to say fading, but it is in some ways, right? And so we're the champions. If you don't remember history, it will repeat itself in the future, right? And so learning those things, sharing those things, and at the end, it's really about youth programs and veterans programs as well. So it's just a very worthy cause. You can mention our website. It is the Medal of Honor, Detroit.com.
So mark your calendars. September 30th to October 3rd, 2026, Medal of Honor Society's convention in Detroit, Michigan. All right, so we're going to go straight to our interviews with Chuck Kettles and Jim McCloughan, Medal of Honor recipients from our program in March of 2018. I get to be the host of an amazing program today. Really excited to talk to our two guests. We've got two Medal of Honor recipients that we're going to be talking to today. They are both Vietnam veterans. One is a helicopter pilot, another one was a medic. And their stories are hair-raising and very exciting, and they are probably two of the nicest and most humble men I've had the privilege of meeting and talking with on this program. How many radio shows do you know of that have two Medal of Honor recipients on the program at the same time? In the studio with me right now is Lieutenant Colonel Charles Kettles, and Colonel Kettles received his Medal of Honor for action in 1967 in Vietnam as a helicopter pilot. And so, Chuck, welcome back to Veterans Radio.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. And joining us on the line right now is one of the newest Medal of Honor recipients, at least from Michigan for sure. And his name is James McCloughan. And Jim, welcome to Veterans Radio.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. And you guys can say hello because you're a member of a very small club.
Well, we're very small, too, so we fit in real well.
That's true. I hadn't thought about that until I was doing some research on this, Jim, and found that you were about, 5'4", maybe?
Yeah, I'm 5'5", so Chuck and I would never be chosen by Michigan State to be their center.
Yeah, but you guys cause all kinds of chaos by just running around.
Oh, yeah, we would. We'd take them right out at the knees.
Well, I want to thank you very much for being on the program, Jim. It's an honor and a privilege for me to talk to the both of you. And I'm going to ask Chuck first to talk a little bit about his medal and just kind of review for our audience. You received yours for being a helicopter pilot, and what did you do?
I'll try to keep that brief. It was a mission that lasted most of one day. It involved inserting a total of 160 troops into an LZ. During the course of the day, they had walked into an ambush, and it took its toll. In the end of the day, that is about 1900 or 7 o'clock in the evening, the battalion commander requested emergency extraction of the remaining 40 troops plus 4 of my crew members from a helicopter that had taken a mortar round on the mast of the helicopter and was destroyed in place. They, of course, immediately ended up being infantry troops. So there was a total of 44 troops. The unit from which I came from was reduced down to where we only had one remaining UH-1D helicopter flyable to make the extraction. So we borrowed 5 from the 161st, which was about 30 miles up the road, and rendezvoused in the area of the LZ landing zone, and went in a trail formation. And shortly after we landed, the troops, of course, loaded, and the aft helicopter crew members advised that everyone was loaded, so I gave a thumbs up to the co-pilot to take us out. And then I did a 180 in the air coming back toward the base, and was advised that there were still 8 troops down in that landing zone in the riverbed who had been putting up a last-ditch defense, protecting those who were boarding but didn't get on a helicopter themselves. So they were down there against battalion-size North Vietnamese Army battalion, and bad scene. Anyway, I had told the commander that I would, of course, go back down and pick them up. I had picked up only one ground troop. They went to the nearest helicopter and got on board. And so I was in the left seat, and the troops were to my left. So I took control and headed into the valley to pick up the 8. And immediately on touchdown, or a few seconds later, mortar round went off the nose of the helicopter, and which took out part of the windshields left and right, the chin bubble where I sat. And, of course, the troops loaded up pretty fast, as one stated in Washington prior to the ceremony for the MOH, when interviewed by the press. He said, well, after I landed, he started running toward the helicopter, and he said the tracers were going past his head. But he said, and then he really began running, and he was staying ahead of the tracers. So he must have had a hell of a pace.
That's good to say. Yeah,
So
probably ran in and slid almost all the way out the other side.
Well, as I learned later, the helicopter, when the co-pilot picked it up, it fishtailed rather violently, and it threw one of the grunts out the left door. He grabbed the skid on the way out, and his compatriots pulled it back in. But then the mortar round went off beneath the tail boom, and rather dramatic departure. But the helicopter was over gross weight by probably 600-700 pounds, and it flew like that too, about like a 2.5-ton truck with a rotor system on it.
Right.
And in order to sustain flight, it couldn't, because it was too heavy, and so it did a combination of a running landing, wherein you simply lowered the collective pitch, because the engine was not strong enough to maintain rotor RPM normal, and there's no point in continuing to pull because it's just going to settle further. And after a jackrabbit departure down the riverbed, allowing the helicopter to come to back down on the skid, the nose of the skid, to regain the rotor RPM so I could fly it again, trading that RPM for forward speed to get about 40 knots. And after about 5 or 6 of those, jackrabbit.
So you're bouncing down this little riverbed?
Yes. And anyway, I wasn't sure whether I was going to get up and go, or 13 of us were going to be down there with Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
But fortunately, it did depart like a good fellow, and went back to base.
All right, that's enough of that one. I have goosebumps already, and I'm just sitting here. I was, for those of you that listen to the program for a long time, I was a helicopter pilot myself, and I'm just sitting here reliving the bouncing to try and get off the ground sometimes when you're, you're overloaded, but you got to get these guys out of these places, and wow, and no chin bubble, and so the air conditioning was working very well.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the good side of it.
That was the good side. Where did this happen, Chuck?
Well, it was northwest out of Duck Pho, which is up in the Central Highland area, which is south of Da Nang. Duck Pho is, that is. And it's about probably 22 clicks to the northwest.
Okay. The reason I asked that question, and Jim, I'm going to bring you in on the conversation right now, if you don't mind, is that where did your action take place?
Well, first of all, let me say, without guys like Chuck, my job is null and void. I can go out and bring them in and patch them up, but unless we get them out of there into a hospital and taken care of, that's where this old coach knows where the real teamwork comes in. So we were very fortunate to have those guys come down and get our guys, even in the dangerous situations that they were operating in. Sometimes, they were coming into the area where bullets are flying all over the place, as you well heard there, and a lot of brave men came down to help us out. So mine took place in off of Chulai, northwest of Chulai, in the Tam Key area, and it was a hill called Nuyan Hill. In May 13th, we were combat assaulted in there. And speaking of helicopters, they couldn't land because it was a hot LZ, so we jumped out at about 10 feet, all of us with our packs and everything, and 2 helicopters shot down.
Oh.
My first rescue was a guy coming in from a squad that had helped the crew from the second helicopter that got shot down come into our perimeter. We couldn't get another helicopter in to pull the crew out, so we brought them in with our squad, and a guy was lingering behind. He had gotten injured jumping out of the helicopter, and he had injured his knee. I thought he was wounded, and everybody else was in about 100 yards before him, so I jumped up and sprinted to him and slid in next to him, asked him where he was hit, and he said, "I'm not hit. I hurt my knee getting out of the helicopter," and I looked at it, size of a volleyball, so I figured I'm going to throw him up on my shoulders, and I said, "Hang on to your M16, you're going up on my shoulders," and I weaved my way in, and luckily we didn't get hit by either the NBA that were assaulting us nor my own men who were, shooting at the NBA, and so I was lucky to get him and out. Everything was okay until that evening. Let me back up a little bit. Our company commander told the battalion commander that this was a flawed mission, and he said, "Well, why do you say that?" And he said, "Well, you haven't sent any forward observations in there, and I only have 89 minutes, so we don't know how many people we're going to be up against." And he told the commander, told Ernie Carrier, the member of our company, that he either takes us in or he gets court-martialed. Well, I'm glad he took us in because he knows it was his second tour, and he knows how to bring in the types of things we need to protect us. And I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you if he hadn't taken us in. They would have court-martialed him anyway, and they would have sent somebody else in his place, so he did the right thing. So that evening, we go out with my platoon out towards the hill. We were ordered to do so by battalion, and we hit an ambush out there, and I immediately heard 2 guys yelling for a medic, jumped up on a berm, and that's when I got hit the first time by rocket-propelled grenade, pulling them into a trench line. I was in the trench line with them, looked up, and about 10 meters away were 2 NVA looking me square in the eye, and I had given up my weapon to go and get these 2 guys, so I had nothing to defend myself, and it's just them and me, and they had no weapons because they had retreated from the ambush and were in a couple of bushes on top of that berm. So I said, follow me, men, and I started running, and I was running through the trench line. It was slowing me down, so I jumped up out of the trench line and ran the best 40-yard dash I've ever ran in my life, swerving, with the bullets kind of bouncing off the ground. I got about 40 yards away from them, and I can now hear my machine gunners firing back at them. So I heard somebody call for the medic, and I went back into the kill zone and pulled another man out. We did this about 4 or 5 times that night, and finally they backed off a little bit. We got a helicopter in, and as I got everybody on, the lieutenant looked at me and said, "Get on, Doc." And that's when I remembered I'd gotten hit out there, and I had, there was blood all over me. I'd gotten hit from head to toe with the fragmentations. And so I said, "I'm not going." I'd gotten close enough to the hill out there that I looked up and realized that there were a lot of them out there. They looked like lava coming down off of that hill. And so I told him I wasn't going because he was going to need me. And they backed up but harassed us all night long. And
you mentioned that, I don't mean to interrupt, but I listened to another interview that you did, and you mentioned that during the night they had women screaming and dogs barking.
Yeah, they had dogs barking, women screaming. So I don't know if the NBA were abusing them, or that was part of their ploy to make it go. I knew there was a lot out there. A lot of people didn't know how many were out there, because though only one guy escaped the front squad that got ambushed, and he ran quickly, so he didn't see what I saw either. But I'll tell you what, I knew there was, I didn't know how many, but I knew there were a lot of them out there. And, yeah, they harassed us all night long, and they were just waiting for the next day. They didn't bother us all day long, but then the next night, battalion ordered us to move out as a company towards the hill. And I'm thinking, are they nuts? Did they not see that we had 2 helicopters shot down coming in? We had a platoon annihilated the night before going in that direction. Mm-hmm. And their excuse was, if we move, they might not know where we were. And I'm thinking, right. Well, yeah, they know where we're at. Matter of fact, they're probably closer to us than they were before, and of course, they were closer to us. So, first platoon got hit a lot earlier than my second platoon got hit the night before. And we only had one other medic left, and his name was Daniel Shea. Does name strike a bell with you or not?
It does. It does. He's on my list of Medal of Honor recipients.
Yes, he is. So, as far as I know, this was unprecedented that 2 medics in the same battle from the same company were not only in a huge battle, but both received the Congressional Medal of Honor. He, about his 4th time out, was killed, and so I actually retrieved his body and took over for the rest of the company for that night. Was hit twice more in my retrieving about 4 or 5 more guys. Plus, I held a blinker in place out there. We were trying to get some resupply in because we were getting really low. And trying to get a resupply in, and I saw these streaks coming over the top of me as I laid prone out there, and I thought, wow, that can only be a rocket-propelled grenade. Well, later on, by the way, we didn't get anything in, and I'm laying there thinking, you know what? If they kick that ammunition out towards this blinking light, it's going to land right on top of me. But they couldn't get close enough, and so they retreated. We didn't get any more ammunition. Shut off the blinking light, got back to the front, and I had to go back and forth all night long because I had 2 critically wounded soldiers, one with a stomach wound, one with a really bad shoulder wound, and the shoulder wound I was afraid was going to go into shock. So I used all 3 of my morphine syringes that night to keep him from going into shock, and I kept them. Using my water, I kept moistness on the bandages of the stomach wound so that the insides would not dry out. But we made it through the night. I killed a guy that was he was shooting a rocket-propelled grenade from behind a tree where I'd left my pack and back there. And I happened to, the baseball coach happened to throw a air burst his way, pulled a pin on the grenade, counted to 3, and then threw it, and it burst in the air right in front of him, so he went down and was out. So we fought all night long, passed it down the line. We were getting low to keep one bullet for yourself in case we didn't make it through. But we did, thanks to the Marines coming in with their Cobras and the Air Force coming in with their Spooky, and of course the Navy shooting from about 4, 5, 6 miles away on China Sea over onto the enemy too. So the big team helped us out, and we fought like a cat cornered by 5 or 6 dogs.
Right.
And we made it. I was wounded twice the second evening.
This is the brief version. We're going to take a break here in a minute or so, and then we're going to get into the details a little bit more, because both of you have amazing stories. Want to remind our audience that we're talking with 2 Medal of Honor recipients here. We've got Lieutenant Colonel Chuck Kettles, was a helicopter pilot in Vietnam and received an award for his actions in 1967, and we've got Jim McCloughan, who is a medic in Vietnam and received his medal for his actions in 1968.
69.
In 69, I'm sorry. Oh, that was when I was there. Maybe. Is this one of those questions where, hey, did you know so-and-so? I didn't. But anyway, we want our audience to give us a call here. If you've got a question for these 2 gentlemen, it's a great opportunity for you. Our number here is 734-822-1600. And I think that they'd be more than happy to answer your questions. We're going to be taking a break for the news. We're going to be playing a Medal of Honor segment that we do every week. Actually, this one's going to be for Bud Day, and maybe you've met him too at some point. He was a pilot. And so we'll be right back after these messages. You're listening to Veterans Radio. Now we're back on Veterans Radio, and I didn't have the opportunity to record segments for our 2 guests today. But if you're just tuning in, we are talking with 2 Medal of Honor recipients from Ypsilanti, Michigan. We are talking with Lieutenant Colonel retired Charles Kettles. He received his award in 1967, or for actions in 1967 as a helicopter pilot. Went back in and brought out a bunch of people that got left in an LZ. That's a landing zone. It's a place where you're all by yourself. You want to get out of there. The other gentleman on the program is Jim McCloughan, and Jim received his Medal of Honor for actions in 1969. He's from South Haven, Michigan, and just recently received his medal from President Trump. Both of you gentlemen, I'm going to go to, we're drafted, which I think is kind of interesting. I don't think people think about that much. Jim, let me ask you about, you had an interesting story because you had just graduated from college.
Yes, I had. I had not only graduated, but I'd signed a contract to teach and coach at South Haven High School in May before I did graduate, and then was ordered to take a physical in July and inducted in August. Yep.
Yeah, we know how those things go. You get that letter, and it's, how much time have I got?
Yeah, it was my uncle. I don't know if you know him or not. It was Uncle Sam.
Oh, that guy.
He wanted me to go on a vacation before I taught school.
That was nice of him. Chuck, you also got that same letter back in 1950-something for the Korean War, didn't you?
That's correct. I had been attending what was then Michigan State Normal College. Been there for 2 years. Not a particularly sterling report, but anyway, I had dropped out in the fall of 51 to... I've been working for American Airlines throwing baggage at night, and also working day for Kaiser Fraser Export Corporation. So I was working the 2 jobs and decided I would continue to do that. Both were full-time, and do that for the fall and then go back to school in January. Well, Uncle Sam had other ideas, and sent me one of the infamous letters.
The greeting letter.
But frankly, it was kind of a relief because they'd let me go to bed probably by 10 o'clock at night. They didn't get me up until probably 6 o'clock. So it was quite a change.
So you're only working one job.
Yes. And they took care of feeding me and doing my clothes and everything else. I thought, nothing wrong with this one.
I didn't quite agree with that particular analysis of the whole thing, although I did like the idea of the free food. But so, Jim, you had graduated from college, and how did you end up becoming a medic?
Well, I've got a couple of theories on that. When I first got to Fort Knox, they put us in a house for a couple of days while we did all our paperwork and got this wonderful haircut and all of our shots and everything. And there was a guy there that had just gotten back from Vietnam, and he was a medic in Vietnam. And he and I were older. He was 23, and I was 22, fresh out of college. So we hit it off, and we talked to each other about our personal lives, and I told him about some of the courses that I'd taken for to become a coach at Olivet, kinesiology, physiology, anatomy, first aid. So I think either they noticed it up at headquarters, or he went up there and said, this guy's, you're not going to prepare him for what he's going to see in Vietnam, but he's got a little step up, and I think you ought to send him to medicals, because I was a draftee, so I don't get my choice,
Right.
Usually draftees don't get those kinds of jobs, and I considered my job a positive job in a negative situation, being able to save lives. So I was very grateful that whatever the reason, whether they discovered it or this young man went up and told them what he knew, I was extremely blessed to become a combat medic.
Well, you mentioned in your story that you went out on one of these missions. Your first mission out in the field was this event?
My first what?
Was for the action where you received the Medal of Honor for. Was that on your very first mission in country?
No.
Okay.
But my very first day with my unit, we hit an ambush. We had 2 killed, 3 wounded, and I killed my first enemy soldier. So I was initiated real quickly. That would have been on March the 9th. I got in country on the 7th, and by March 9th, they needed a medic in the Charlie Company, and that's where they sent me.
Okay.
The medics and the officers were assigned to a headquarters unit. So if you look at a roster of Charlie Company, you won't see the officers nor the medics on that roster. They're on the roster of the headquarters, so we're assigned to, but I don't know why they ever did that, because I was a Charlie Company, soldier.
Okay, and so on May 13th, when you went out into this field, I want you to kind of, for our audience's sake, if you could describe all the bad guys that you saw. You have a great metaphor for that in one of the things that I read. When you ended up, you were dropped off in this LZ, and everybody's getting shot at and all these other things, and you looked up across, about 100 yards out or more, and you start seeing these figures coming down a mountainside or hillside.
Well, that was when I was out the first night when my platoon was sent out, and we were out there about, I don't even know how far we went, but I was about 3/4 of a mile from New Yan Hill when I looked up on the hill and saw this lava flowing off of that hill. I knew there was a lot of them. I didn't know how many, but I knew there was a lot more than we had on that hill. They were coming our way.
And how big was the unit that you were involved with? Our size unit. How big was that?
Our unit?
Yeah.
89.
So you had 89, and the number that I read was approximately 2,000 bad guys were coming down on you.
Yeah, there's been several accounts, but we know there was at least 700 VC, and then there was anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 NBA also on that hill. So they were dug in. Mm-hmm.
It really is amazing that anybody was able to survive that.
Yeah, I shouldn't be talking with you on the phone. There's no doubt about that.
Well, I think that Colonel Kettles could probably relate to that too. I mean, just sitting in an LZ with people shooting at you is not the safest feeling I've ever had in my life. How about you?
No, I can think of better environments.
You guys are so humble. It's just another day at the office.
Well, I'll tell you what. We both know that medal isn't ours. I've heard Chuck say the same thing. I just kind of am the caretaker for the 89 men that went in, whether they made it or didn't make it, because they're, the leading scorer in a basketball game doesn't do that by himself. Somebody has to feed him the ball, and that quarterback that came in for Alabama, that freshman quarterback, and threw 3 touchdown passes to be number 1 in the nation. He had to have a good line blocking for him, and a guy that scores a winning run in a baseball game, somebody has to hit him home. So Chuck and I are both aware that it's not our medal.
No, in my case, it belongs to what I regard as some 74 helicopter crew members that were involved in that mission that day. Mm-hmm. But during the course of the day, we went through 19 helicopters. They were damaged beyond flyable condition. And so consequently, the crew stayed with the helicopter after they got them back to base. But the medal still belongs to 74. I'm just a caretaker.
Right.
They award it to one person, but it belongs to all 74 of them.
I think that one of the things, Jim, that I had read about you is you talked about the adrenaline rush that you had, and I think all three of us can relate to that adrenaline rush because you don't even notice what's going on around you until you can calm down. Because you said that when the RPG went off near you and hit you with all that shrapnel, you didn't even notice it except, wow, that hurts, that stings, and then you just kept going.
Yeah, I kind of credit my experience as an athlete, and especially with 4 years of college football, 4 years of college wrestling. They taught me the mental discipline that I needed, and the crowd noise and everything isn't the same as the noise that Chuck and I hear in the middle of a battle like that. But you do become accustomed to focusing and paying attention to what you have to do and try to make that more of and you do make that more of a priority over anything else because you got a job to do and you don't have time. If you flinch, if you hesitate, he who hesitates isn't lost, he's dead sometimes. So I credit those two sports, and consequently, when I came back, I coached them both so that I could give back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the sports analogy is great. Because you rely so much on your teammates in whatever sport that you are in that it kind of did take over. And as you mentioned, you don't have time to. You can't flinch. You can't think about what you're doing. You just do, and after the whole thing is over, then you sit down and you think about what you had just done, and you go, what was I thinking? I wasn't. I was just going on my reactions. And I think that sounds like what, Chuck, what you did. Guys are down there in a landing. Oh, go get them.
Yes, there weren't any options.
No, you can't leave them there.
I wasn't sure I could do it, but I was the only possibility. Mm-hmm. And you've got 8 troops against the North Vietnamese battalion, and I had simply been lead throughout the entire mission all day, sometimes with 8 helicopters in total. And the last mission was with 6 until I went in by myself on the absolute last flight, which was the 6th one into that LZ for myself and my crew. But you've got three radios you're monitoring, the FM, the UHF and VHF, and paying attention to what's going on behind you with the helicopters behind. And there's too much to do to get very excited about what the situation is. Just move whatever direction's necessary.
I know. And Jim, I'm sure that you feel the same way. If the guy was wounded, you just went and got him. You didn't think about the situation.
Well, when you've got a multiple choice question and only has one answer, it's not too hard to make the answer. You do whatever it is you have to do, and the real thing is, and I think Chuck is a great person to pat on the back for this too, is that those are your men out there, those are your brothers, and so it doesn't matter what happens to you. You just gotta get them. There's a job to be done. You know what your job is, and do it to the best of your ability, and get it done. And if anything else happens, well, that's what happens.
You mentioned, Jim, and I would like to just talk about this briefly, is that when you were in the worst of the situation, you kind of had a little conversation with God, which probably many of us have had in those situations, about something that you wanted to do for your dad. Could you share that with our audience?
Well, yeah, when the gentleman with a stomach wound, and I had to take care of him in the open rice paddy, and that's why I was hit with an AK-47, because I couldn't move him until I got the bandages on and got his insides stabilized a little bit. Then I drug him into a trench line, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to carry him through the crossfire. Well, I can't throw him over my shoulder, or he's going to lose everything. And so I'm kind of anticipating what I'm going to do, and all of a sudden this thought came up for me that a kid growing up in the 50s and 60s, we didn't tell our dad and our brothers that we loved them. I knew my dad loved me, and I'm pretty sure he knew I loved him, but we hadn't said those 3 words, I love you. And so I asked my Lord if he'd get me through that. I'd be the best dad and the best coach and the best teacher that I could possibly be. And this incredible peace came over me that it was no longer in my ballpark. Whatever happened, if I died in that battle, then that's what it was meant to be. And if I was lucky enough to make it through, then I better keep my side of the bargain. And I ran to my dad in Chicago, Illinois, when I got off the plane, and hugged him and told him that I loved him, and he did the same, as if we'd been doing that for my 24 years of life, and that was our greeting and our departure from then on. And of course, I passed that same thing on to my children, grandchildren, and students and athletes. So
you also
say to those people that you really mean it.
Yeah,
to, because
you do.
You aren't guaranteed tomorrow.
Unfortunately, that's very true, and I think as we get a little bit older, we even realize that more and more how important it is to make sure that we do let people know how we feel.
Yep, that's for sure.
Your dad had a motto too called "Do the right thing." Can you talk about that just briefly?
He always told me that do the right thing even if somebody else isn't looking, and he always told me to never do anything halfway. To do it to the best of my ability, not somebody else's ability, the best of my ability, and then make sure I did it until the job was complete. And that's one of the reasons I didn't get on the first night. Job wasn't over, and I knew they were going to need me. So.
Yeah, you were the one that was there to take care of them.
Yeah, they wouldn't have had anybody. I'd rather be dead in a rice paddy than in a hospital and find out that one of my men lost his life because his medic wasn't there to do his job.
Well, shortly after this skirmish, as you could say, or this battle, you were transferred. Is that correct?
No, I was transferred later on.
Okay, but tell us how
shortly after that battle, I was on LZ East when I got overran. We had in 20 minutes we had 17 Americans killed and 34 wounded. They ran in the evening of, actually early morning of June the 11th, 1969. So, as Chuck probably experienced too, it wasn't just the one battle. There were several battles that we're involved in that if you're in the wrong place at the right time, you're going to be dead,
we can all, unfortunately, we can all relate to that.
Right.
But you ended up being transferred out of the field.
At the end of my tour, yeah, I was in Chulai at the 91st Evacuation Hospital.
Okay, and Chuck, you also were transferred shortly after your experience, weren't you?
Yes, I was sent up to brigade, the 1st Brigade of the 101st, to be their aviation officer, which didn't please me at all, because that just put me further from where things were happening. And
your guys.
Yes. I had been in the interim period. The day after, the company commander of the helicopter unit transferred me into flight operations against my wishes. But and when I asked him about why, he simply said, "Well, Chuck, I thought maybe if you're the operations officer, you can figure out what a assault helicopter company does without any helicopters."
Because you'd broken them all.
Yes.
There's Jim, if you ever get to visit Chuck here in Ypsilanti when you come on this side of the state, he's got a bill from the Army for what? How many helicopters?
For the 19 helicopters.
For 19 helicopters.
It's just
Had a bill from him.
$89,300,000.
Yeah. You should better win the lotto.
that, of course, in fairness, was in jest by the Secretary of the Army following a luncheon in the Pentagon.
That's something.
But still, it was pretty funny the first time I saw it. I of course, I fell for it initially, but then there was another little letter attached to it afterwards. I wrote
back to the Secretary of the Army after I got back home and explained to him that I would suggest and appeal the invoice because he had charged me with 19 UH-1 hotel.
Oh, H models. You didn't have H models.
And we were flying D models, and I explained to him that I would have given most anything for the extra 200 horsepower. Would have made a significant difference.
You would have. You would have. I want to ask both of you. We're coming up. We got about 6 minutes left, I think. How has the Medal of Honor changed your life? Jim, I'll go with you first.
Oh wow, yeah, it's been a whirlwind. You know, I've been to 10 states, and some of them more than once, and in the last 6 months, and you know, it's an opportunity really to let the world know who those guys were that fought in that war. And I've compared it to my father. We are actually the Vietnam veterans. A lot of them are sons of the World War II veterans. And my dad came home from his war and didn't talk about it. I came home, didn't talk about it. My dad came home and started a career. So did I. My dad built a family. So did I. And we built a house, and so did I. But see, my father didn't have to talk about his war because everybody was talking about it for them. Yet the Vietnam veteran, the son of the World War II veteran, didn't want to talk about it because of the experience, and it was a controversial war. You know, I will state this loud and clear. You can hate the war, or you can have your opinion on the war, but you better love that warrior because he's the same guy his dad was.
Absolutely.
He fought hard for the freedom as anyone else. So if I can pass anything on to those that don't understand who those brothers of mine were. They were very brave men. I fought with a lot of heroes out there, and so I was asked the question, would you do it again? And I say, you know, nobody wakes up and says, well, I hope there's a war out there for me to go to today. But had I not gone to Vietnam, I would have never met some of the most caring, brave, loving people that I've ever met in my entire life.
True. Chuck, how about your experience?
Well, it was quite peaceful up until the president presented the Medal of Honor. And then, although I had served on active duty for some 20 years, during that period of time, I was only in the Pentagon one time, briefly checking my personnel records. But since they awarded the Medal of Honor in the G1 General McConville office for a social visit, and I was also in the office of General Milley, who was Chief of Staff of the Army, a 4-star, and invited into his office and must have spent at least 45 minutes. And he asked initially when I went there, he said, "You've been here before?" And I said, no. And he said, "You haven't?" I said, "No, I tried to behave myself when I was on active duty." But anyway, and General McConville was there, the G1, and he has since been awarded his 4th star, and he's the deputy to General Milley. So anyway, and of course I never would have been into the White House in that manner and met the president with, and that sort of thing. So
Life has changed for both of you.
Yeah, I might say that's one of the most unbelievable experiences that you can have.
Somewhat.
We have offices of those individuals and be standing there in the president's office. It's like surreal, you know.
I can only imagine. We have a quick call from someone that wanted to talk to you, so I'm going to throw John on. You got about 30 seconds.
Well, gentlemen, I just called to personally, as a Vietnam veteran, just to salute you both. We're good friends, and the most incredible story that I can think of is you never lost a man in all your flying with the 101st Airborne, and I'm still flabbergasted every time I think about that. You must have been a tremendous commander. And James, we live in Michigan, and maybe someday our paths will cross. I'd love to give you a hug, man. Thank you.
I'd be very happy to do that.
Thank you, John. We'll get Jim over to this side of the state, or maybe we'll all just jump in a van and go visit him. He's got some spare time, I'm sure. I think he can welcome us all in there. Gentlemen, I want to thank you both very, very much for being on Veterans Radio today. It's an honor and privilege for me to talk with both of you, and hope to talk to you again.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
So that's all the time we have today. I hope you enjoyed today's program. I was really excited to talk to these two gentlemen again. We're out of time. So until next week, this is Dale Throneberry. For all of us here at Veterans Radio, you are dismissed.